our evolution.
Sticklebacks.
Cichlid.
Red Blue Queen.
It's forever.
Macaque.
Out of Africa.
Cichlid.
Evo.
It's forever.
Hello, Ken Bacon here, experimental evolutionist biologist Evo for Chicago University. Fairness demands that those searching for answers can find evolution being taught in science classes and science books, and creation being taught in church and religion class. Say that one should be favored over the other directly contradicts the idea of fairness. However, people should be aware that one takes a scientific approach to explaining the wonders of all living organisms using data observations and evidence, while the other focuses on the words of an unknown designer. Supporters of creation will argue that evolution is just a theory and should not be taken as fact. What many don't understand is that a scientific theory is more than just an idea thrown out into the world. Scientific theories, such as the theory of evolution or atomic theory, bring together hundreds of thousands of hypotheses, data collections, observations, and conclusions. In a scientific environment, students should expect to learn using the tools of scientific method, much how they should expect to learn about God and church. Evolution is science. Creationism is religion. We don't teach the laws of physics in Bible studies class, so why should we teach the theory of creationism in science classes? I don't know. Hey, Ken Ham here. The idea that creation scientists are unfairly snubbed by mainstream journals is flawed in its foundations for the main reason that creationism is not a science in the first place. There are no lab experiments, no testable hypotheses, no data. Creationism is simply observations and attempts at explanations. It is the belief that the universe and living organisms originate from, quote, specific acts of divine creation, rather than by undirected processes such as evolution. Granted, there are scientists that do in fact believe in and defend creationism. Biologists, geologists, and physicists have all been known to support the ideas of intelligent design. But to say that they are snubbed by mainstream journals is unfair to the rest of the science community. The mere fact that creationists often face criticism is in no way unfair, as true scientists with legitimate findings should be able to withstand the inquiries of peer review. Good science has been looked over, read over, retested, and repeated dozens of times. A creationist's inability to produce cold hard data is in no way an example of them being unfairly snubbed. Oh, didn't see you there. Hello, Chem Turkey again. From an evolutionary standpoint, the idea that life has no purpose is beyond foolish. Evolution through natural selection would not exist were it not for an organism's goal to reproduce and pass on its genes to future generations. Evolutionarily speaking, life's purpose is in fact to ensure the continuance of your traits. Now, for many, this answer lacks what we crave the most: significance. The purpose seems almost purposeless, as it's no different than the purpose of the insects and sponges that live among us. It makes many feel like humans are truly insignificant on the planet and in the history of species. Many people look for teleological explanations as to the purpose of our lives, meaning we believe we're here in order to serve a future purpose. However, evolution and natural selection pose historical explanations, saying instead that we are not here to serve a purpose. We are here because we are evolved, and evolving still.
Stephen J. I pity the fool here. Irreducible complexity proposes the idea that it would be impossible for a complex organ, like the human eye, to have come to have the function and complexity that it has via the randomness of natural selection. Creation scientists state that the eye had to have been made as a perfect form by a designer. That being said, if you took apart the pieces that make up a human eye, then there would be no function. However, scientists have found organisms with proto-eyes, or eyes that are not as complex but still contain similar parts while lacking others. The evolution of the eye seemed to have started as a mutation of a single photoreceptor cell that gave the organism the ability to respond to light. As this gene became the norm in the population, the organisms with greater response to light survived. Then through mutations, organisms started having the ability to tell light from dark, and then eventually the direction from which the light was coming from. As the photosensitive patch became narrower, it created an aperture, like a pinhole camera, giving the ability to change focus. Then the aqueous humor formed that kept the retina in place, improved vision stability. The remaining parts of the eye included the cornea, a transparent layer atop the transparent lens, which focused light, resulting in greater picture quality. The pupil, which was able to control the amount of light coming into the eye. Organisms with midforms of all of these separate parts exist. For instance, unicellular protists of the genus Euglena possess a small stigma, or eye spot, that is capable of detecting light but unable to form images. Planarian worms have cup-shaped eyes, capable of detecting the direction of a light source. The nautilus has a pinhole camera eyes, capable of seeing blurry images. Sea snails have a rudimentary lens, in the form of a blob of jelly, giving them the ability to adjust their focus. The eye didn't form from a macro mutation. These mutations took millions of years to evolve. If these organisms were under the same selection pressure, similar to humans, we would expect the outcome of the eye to form into a complex organ similar to the function of the eye. So in fact, the parts of the human eye can be reduced and still have similar function. Although I don't know why anyone would want only one part of our eyes. I like my eyes the way they are.
Hey there, Ken Lean Roast Beef here. Though environmental and social factors do in fact play a role, studies have found significant amounts of evidence that show male homosexuality is influenced by genes. The very logical question that would soon follow would be something along the lines of, how can a trait which prevents a male organism from being attracted to the only sex it can reproduce with withstand the filters of evolution through natural selection? There are many well-formulated theories as to why homosexuality has made it as far as it has. For example, a group of genes that sometimes codes for homosexual orientation may at other times have had a strong reproductive benefit. This would compensate for gay people's lack of reproduction and ensure the continuation of the trait, as a non-gay carrier of the gene would pass it down. The helper in the nest hypothesis suggests that gay people compensate for their lack of children by promoting the reproductive fitness of brothers or sisters, contributing money, or performing other uncle-like activities such as babysitting or tutoring. Some of the gay person's genetic code is shared with the nieces and nephews, and so the genes, which code for sexual orientation, still get passed down.
Hi, I'm Stephen J. Fould, and today we will be talking about embryology. Embryology falls under the category of evolutionary developmental biology, and studies on embryos have revealed the evolutionary history of humans, or any animal for that matter, remains in the embryo of that animal. The sequence that the embryo develops mimics the embryos of its ancestors. The reason for this is that natural selection builds upon already existing traits, and while you would think it would be more efficient for the embryo to directly develop into the stage of that actual animal, the chance of error in the development would be a lot greater. Human embryos go through several stages of development. Since humans evolved from an ancestor that began in the water and then came onto land, you would then expect the human to have a fish stage. And in fact, the human embryo does go through a fish stage in which humans have pharyngeal patches that are similar to those of fish embryos. The only difference is that in fish embryos, these patches develop into gill slits, whereas in human embryos, they continue to develop developing into later stages and into different function. Although humans do not have gill slits when they are fully developed, in the early stages of development, they have the same pharyngeal pouches that originally developed into gill slits. So while we are in fact human, we might as well have a little fish in us. Hello, my name is Stephen J. Ford, and today we will be talking about the Cambrian explosion. Now it's a funny thing actually, because the Cambrian explosion really wasn't like with bombs and explosions. Actually, the Cambrian explosion refers to the period about 530 million years ago, where many modern body forms first appeared. Scientists use radiometric dating to explore rock layers for fossils of these phyla. Creation scientists use the Cambrian explosion against evolution, saying that there were no other fossils of complex forms before the Cambrian era. And because there was no proof of earlier forms, and ancestry showed a spontaneous and independent appearance. Although there are no modern complex forms, there are fossil burrows which had been made by animals with digging functions, as well as multicellular organisms that were developing. So in fact, there were organisms present in the Precambrian era, even though they were not as complex as modern phyla. But evolutionary scientists such as Stephen Jay Gould developed a theory of punctuated equilibrium, which states that there are a period of extreme progressions followed by periods of stasis. Evolutionary scientists believe the Cambrian explosion to be a period of progression. It is a big leap of faith to consider punctuated equilibrium to be the cause of the Cambrian explosion. However, a change in the environment could cause this period of progression, and it has been shown that the amount of oxygen at this time in the Earth's atmosphere increased dramatically around the time of the Cambrian explosion. With more oxygen, it was easier for multicellular organs to form. Boom.